Sir, I need to view your identification and confirmation of citizenship. Can you explain your probable cause for that request? We got a report about unusual behavior. Now present your documents. My police credentials are inside my car. I am a U.S.
Derek Holt believed he was performing standard immigration enforcement. Anonymous report. Suspicious person at a suburban gas station. Possible undocumented individual. In his view, asking for papers was normal procedure. He had done it many times before, approaching individuals who didn't appear to belong, relying on instincts that had never truly been questioned. But when he stepped up to the black man refueling his truck at Pump 7 and demanded proof of citizenship, he made a severe misjudgment. The man he confronted was Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, a decorated Navy SEAL with 12 years of service, 3 combat tours, a Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. Webb was also an off-duty police detective with the Metro Police Department, a man who had devoted his entire adult life to defending the Constitution that Hull was about to violate. And when Webb calmly rejected the unlawful request, citing his Fourth Amendment rights and requesting probable cause, Hull made a chain of decisions that would cost the federal government $14.9 million. What Hull didn't understand, what he completely overlooked in his rush to act on assumptions, was that 3 separate recording systems were capturing every second. The gas station's CCTV system with 8 cameras covering all angles. Holt's own body camera, activated per protocol, recording from his chest, and Webb's personal dash cam, which he had remotely activated from his phone the moment the agents approached. 3 viewpoints, 3 undeniable records. Every word, every action, every instance of racial profiling recorded in high definition with crystal clear audio. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please press that subscribe button. Stories like these deserve to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Agent Derek Holt had served with Immigration and Customs Enforcement for 9 years, operating out of the regional field office with a reputation his supervisors described as aggressive but effective. He was known for high arrest numbers, for proactive enforcement, for a readiness to make stops that other agents might hesitate to attempt. His performance evaluations praised his initiative and commitment to immigration enforcement. But beneath that reputation was a concerning pattern that the agency had repeatedly overlooked. 7 formal complaints had been filed against Hull over 6 years. Each one alleged racial profiling. Each one outlined the same behavior. Hull approaching American citizens demanding proof of citizenship without cause, threatening arrest when they asserted their rights. A Latina school teacher detained for 45 minutes in a grocery store parking lot. A Korean-American business owner questioned outside his own restaurant. A black construction worker handcuffed at a job site despite presenting a valid driver's license. Every complaint had been reviewed by Internal Affairs. Every complaint had been dismissed as a misunderstanding or unproven. Holt had learned that as long as he claimed to be acting on reports or suspicious behavior, his department would shield him. He believed his instincts were sharp, that years on duty had given him an ability to identify who belonged and who didn't. Music, he saw patterns where none existed, threats in ordinary people living ordinary lives. In reality, his instincts were bias disguised as experience, prejudice masked as professional judgment. The departmental culture supported him. Supervisors valued arrest statistics over constitutional adherence. Training emphasized enforcement authority while downplaying Fourth Amendment limits. When complaints arose, the default reaction was to defend the agent, not examine the claim. Hull operated in an environment where demanding papers from anyone who appeared foreign was considered effective policing, where the Constitution was treated as a barrier to maneuver around rather than a principle to uphold. That Saturday morning, when the anonymous report came in about a suspicious individual at the Sunoco station on Miller Road, Holt saw another chance to do what he believed he did best. He had no idea he was about to meet someone who understood constitutional law better than he did, and who had the training, the credentials, and the courage to challenge him. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb had spent his adult life serving his country. 12 years as a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite combat forces in the world. 3 combat tours, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and others he couldn't discuss. Missions that remained classified, operations that would never appear in any official record. He had earned a Bronze Star for valor during a firefight in Fallujah, where he carried 2 wounded teammates to safety under enemy fire. He had received a Purple Heart after suffering shrapnel wounds to his leg during an IED ambush. Returning to duty 4 months later against medical advice because his team needed him. Webb had given everything to defend the Constitution of the United States. He had watched friends die for it. He had nearly died for it himself. And when he transitioned out of the military 4 years ago, he continued serving, joining the Metro Police Department, rising quickly to detective, earning commendations for his work in the Violent Crimes Unit. His fellow officers respected him. His supervisors trusted him. He was exactly the kind of man communities needed, protecting them. At 38 years old, Webb had built a life in the suburbs. His wife Sarah worked as an ER nurse at Memorial Hospital, pulling long shifts just like he did. Their 2 children, Marcus Jr., 11, and Destiny, 8, attended the local elementary school. They lived in a 4-bedroom house 7 minutes from the gas station on Miller Road in the same neighborhood where Webb had grown up, where his parents still lived 3 streets away. That Saturday morning, Webb was exhausted. He had just finished a 12-hour night shift investigating a series of armed robberies. His eyes were heavy, his body ached, and all he wanted was to get home, kiss his kids, and sleep. He pulled into the Sunoco station at 9:43 a.m. to refuel his truck, a routine task he had done hundreds of times before. He was wearing jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. His police badge and service weapon secured in the glove box per department protocol for off-duty carry. He looked like any other tired man stopping for gas on a Saturday morning. But to Agent Derek Hull watching from across the street, Marcus Webb appeared to be a target. The Sunoco station on Miller Road sat at the intersection of suburban convenience and constant activity. It was the kind of place where minivan mothers refueled between soccer practices, where commuters grabbed coffee, where landscaping crews topped off their trucks before weekend jobs. The station had been robbed twice in the past 3 years, which led the owner to install a comprehensive security system, music, that would prove essential to everything that followed. 8 CCTV cameras covered every part of the property. 2 monitored the pumps from elevated positions on light poles. 2 more watched the entrance and exit driveways. 3 covered the convenience store interior and exterior from different angles. 1 wide-angle camera mounted on the building's corner captured the entire lot in a single frame. The system recorded in high definition 24 hours a day with timestamps accurate to the second. Every pump, every vehicle, every face recorded and stored. That Saturday morning began bright and clear. By 9:47 a.m., the temperature had already reached 72 degrees. The sun casting sharp shadows across the concrete. Perfect visibility, ideal recording conditions, the kind of lighting cameras favor, capturing every detail with unforgiving clarity. Webb pulled his black Ford F-150 into the station and stopped at Pump 7, the camera on the eastern light pole tracking his arrival. He stepped out, stretched his tired muscles, and inserted his credit card into the pump. Routine, ordinary, unremarkable. Across the street, in the parking lot of a closed hardware store, Agent Derek Holt sat in an unmarked ICE vehicle with his partner, Agent Maria Rivera. They had been there for 40 minutes conducting what Holt called surveillance, based on an anonymous report that had come in that morning. The report was frustratingly vague. A caller with a block number claiming there was a suspicious Hispanic or black male frequenting the gas station, possibly undocumented, possibly using fake identification. No name, no vehicle description, no specific behavior identified, just vague claims that should have been properly investigated before any action was taken. But Holt didn't need specifics. When he saw Webb step out of his truck, a tall, muscular black man in civilian clothing, something in his mind clicked. The assumptions he had developed over 9 years told him this was his target. Without verification, without probable cause, without anything resembling constitutional justification, Hull opened his door and walked toward the gas station. His body camera activated automatically as he exited the vehicle, starting the recording that would ultimately end his career. Holt's body camera activated with a soft beep as he stepped out of the unmarked vehicle, the device beginning its automatic recording protocol. The timestamp read 9:47 and 23 seconds. Music, Agent Rivera followed reluctantly, her own camera capturing a slightly different angle as they crossed Miller Road toward the gas station. The morning sun was behind them, their shadows stretching long across the pavement as they approached. Webb stood at Pump 7, his back partially turned, watching the numbers rise on the fuel display. He heard footsteps approaching, 2 sets, purposeful and deliberate, and turned to see 2 figures in tactical vests with ICE badges displayed prominently on their chests. His training responded immediately, his posture straightening almost imperceptibly. Years of military and law enforcement experience assessing the situation in an instant. Something was wrong. Holt's body camera captured Webb's face as they approached, calm, composed, alert. The camera also recorded Holt's own aggressive stance, his hand resting on his belt, his shoulders squared in a posture meant to intimidate. The CCTV camera on the eastern light pole recorded the same moment from above. 2 federal agents closing in on a lone man at a gas pump. The encounter began in crystal-clear daylight. "Sir, I need to view your identification and confirmation of citizenship," Holt stated without introduction, his voice carrying the assumption that compliance was required. No greeting, no explanation, just a command. Webb's expression stayed neutral, but his eyes sharpened. "Good morning, officers," he responded, his voice calm and controlled. "Can you explain the legal basis for that request? What is your probable cause?" The question lingered in the air. Holt's body camera captured his brief hesitation, the slight tightening of his jaw. He wasn't used to being challenged. Most people, when confronted by federal agents, simply complied out of fear or confusion. But Webb held his ground, feet planted shoulder-width apart, hands visible at his sides, the stance of a man who understood confrontation and refused to be intimidated by it. "We've received a report of suspicious activity at this location," Holt said, stepping closer. "I need to confirm your identity and immigration status immediately." The gas station's wide-angle camera captured the full scene. The 2 agents moving in. Music, Webb standing alone beside his truck. Other customers at nearby pumps starting to glance over with concern. The confrontation had started. Webb took a controlled breath before answering, his years of training keeping his voice steady despite the anger rising in his chest. "Officer, I am a police detective with Metro PD. I'm off duty, and I'm asking you again. What is your probable cause for requesting my identification?" Holt's body camera recorded his dismissive scoff. "Anyone can claim they're a cop. I need to see documentation. Proof of citizenship now." "I have my police credentials in my vehicle," Webb replied, gesturing toward his truck. "My badge and ID are in the glove compartment. I'm willing to show you." "I don't want to see police credentials," Holt interrupted, his voice sharpening. "I want to see immigration documents, proof you're in this country legally." Webb's jaw tightened, the muscle shifting beneath his skin visible on the body camera footage. "I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a United States citizen. I am also a Navy SEAL veteran with 12 years of service. I have no obligation to carry immigration documents because I'm American. And under the 4th Amendment, you cannot detain me or demand identification without reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity. What crime do you suspect me of committing?" Holt leaned closer, his camera recording his own aggressive stance. "That's what they all say. Everyone's a citizen. Everyone has an excuse. I've heard it all before. That's what they all say." Webb repeated, his voice lowering. "Who exactly is they, agent?" The question struck like a blow. Holt's face flushed red, the color change visible on Rivera's camera from the side angle. Around them, other customers had paused what they were doing. A woman at pump 4 held up her phone, recording. A man in a business suit stood frozen by his car door watching. The gas station's CCTV captured everything. The growing audience, the tension radiating from the scene. Rivera shifted uneasily, her body camera wavering as she adjusted her stance. "Derek," she said quietly, barely audible on the recording. "Maybe we should step back." Holt snapped without turning around. Inside Webb's truck, his dash cam activated. He had turned it on remotely through an app on his phone the moment he noticed the agents approaching. A habit formed from years of understanding that documentation meant protection. The camera faced forward through the windshield, capturing audio through the partially open window. 3 recording devices now documented every word, every gesture, every moment of escalation and agent. Derek Holt had no idea. Webb relied on every ounce of his law enforcement training to keep his voice level and controlled. He had de-escalated situations with armed suspects, negotiated with barricaded individuals, talked people down from the brink of violence. He could handle one overzealous ICE agent. "Let me explain something to you, Agent," Webb said, his tone carrying the quiet authority of a man accustomed music to command. "Under Terry v. Ohio, you need reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity to detain someone and demand identification. An anonymous report without specific details doesn't meet that standard. You've given me no reason to believe I'm suspected of any crime. I'm standing at a gas pump filling my truck in the neighborhood where I've lived for 6 years. There is nothing suspicious about my presence here. Holt's body camera captured his fists tightening at his sides. You're obstructing a federal investigation. That is a crime. Keep talking, and I'll add failure to comply with a lawful order. Obstruction of what investigation? Webb asked, his voice rising slightly but staying controlled. What specific crime do you suspect me of committing? You keep demanding documents, but you haven't stated a single fact that gives you legal authority to do so. I'm asking you directly, Agent. What is your reasonable suspicion? The silence stretched for 4 seconds. The body camera recorded Holt's mouth opening and closing, his mind searching for an answer he didn't have. The CCTV captured his shoulders stiffening, his posture becoming rigid. Webb's dash cam picked up the ambient sounds of the gas station, a car door shutting, the beep of a fuel pump finishing, the distant hum of traffic on Miller Road. The gas station's front door opened with a chime. A middle-aged man in a Sunoco polo shirt stepped out, his name tag reading, Gary Manager. His face showed concern as he observed the situation. 2 federal agents confronting a customer at the pumps. Other customers watching nervously. Excuse me, Gary called out, walking toward them. Is everything all right here? Is there a problem? Holt turned toward him, his camera view shifting abruptly. Sir, step back. This is federal business. Return inside immediately. This is my station, Gary replied, stopping but not retreating. That man is a customer. What is happening? I said step back, Holt barked. Interfere with a federal officer, and you will be arrested as well. Gary raised his hands and stepped back toward the door, but he did not go inside. He stood watching, his presence becoming another witness to what was unfolding. The overhead CCTV captured his position near the entrance, captured the other customers frozen beside their vehicles, captured the phones raised and recording. 3 official recording sources documented every word: Holt's body camera, the gas station's CCTV system, and Webb's dash cam. The truth was being preserved from every angle. Holt had reached his breaking point. His face flushed deep red, the color vivid on Rivera's camera footage as he reached for the handcuffs on his belt. The metallic clink as he unclipped them cut through the morning air captured on all 3 recording devices with perfect clarity. Turn around. Holt ordered. Hands behind your back. You are under arrest. Webb did not move. His voice remained steady, though his eyes had hardened into something cold and focused. Agent, I am telling you clearly, this is an unlawful arrest. You have no probable cause. You have no reasonable suspicion. You cannot state any crime you believe I have committed. If you place those handcuffs on me, you will be violating my 4th Amendment rights, and there will be consequences. Turn around now. You are making a serious mistake, Webb continued, his words measured and deliberate, spoken as much for the recordings as for Holt. I am Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, United States Navy SEAL, retired. I am a detective with the Metro Police Department, badge number 4471. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I am an American citizen. And you are about to falsely arrest a decorated combat veteran and fellow law enforcement officer because you saw a black man at a gas station and assumed he was illegal. Holt grabbed Webb's arm, turning him around with more force than necessary. The body camera recorded Webb's controlled movements as he allowed himself to be turned, his hands moving slowly and deliberately behind his back. He did not resist physically. His training told him that resisting federal agents, even during an unlawful arrest, would only escalate the danger. You are resisting, Holt announced loudly, loud enough for witnesses to hear. I am not resisting, Webb replied calmly, his voice clear on all audio feeds. I am complying with your unlawful orders while verbally asserting my constitutional rights. That is not resistance. The handcuffs clicked around Webb's wrists. Rivera's camera captured her stepping forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Derek, maybe we should confirm his credentials first. Music, he has details, badge number, military service. We should verify before we transport. We will confirm at the field office, Holt snapped, not bothering to lower his voice. His own camera recorded his dismissal of his partner's concern. Around them, the gas station had become an audience. A teenager at Pump 2 held his phone horizontally, music recording video. The woman at Pump 4 had not moved, her phone still raised. An elderly man standing near the air pump shouted, "He said he is a police officer. Did you even check?" Holt ignored them all. He gripped Webb's arm and led him toward the ICE vehicle parked across the street. The body camera recording the walk past staring customers, past Gary, the manager still standing by the door, past the CCTV cameras that tracked every step. Webb's dash cam captured the moment from behind, recording Holt's back as he escorted a handcuffed Navy SEAL and police detective to a federal detention vehicle. Webb said nothing more. He had made his statements for the record. Now he allowed the cameras to do their work. The ICE vehicle's interior camera recorded everything that occurred during the 12-minute drive to the field office. Webb sat in the back, his hands cuffed behind him, his face turned toward the window, expression unreadable. Holt drove in silence, his jaw tight, but Rivera, seated in the passenger seat, could not shake the doubt weighing on her. She pulled out her tablet and began typing, running Webb's name through the federal law enforcement database. The search took less than 30 seconds. When the results appeared on her screen, her face turned pale. The interior camera captured the color draining from her cheeks, captured her eyes widening, captured her hand moving instinctively to cover her mouth. "Derek," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek, pull over. We are 5 minutes away. Whatever it is can wait." "It cannot." Rivera's voice cracked. She turned the tablet toward him, though he could not read it while driving. "He is in the system. Active law enforcement officer. Metro PD detective, badge number 471. Exactly as he said. And Derek," she paused, scrolling further. "He is listed military, Navy SEAL, 12 years, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, 3 combat deployments." The interior camera captured Holt's reaction in profile. The initial shake of his head, the denial, then the slow rising horror as the truth set in. His grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. He couldn't have, Holt stammered. "He told you," Rivera said quietly. "He told you exactly who he was. Badge number and everything. You didn't listen." They reached the Icefield office in silence. Webb was escorted inside, still handcuffed, still composed, his dignity intact despite everything. The booking area had its own camera system, capturing his arrival from multiple angles as Holt guided him to the processing desk. Full verification took less than 10 minutes. Metro PD confirmed Webb's employment and active status. The Department of Defense database confirmed his military service, his awards, his honorable discharge. Every single detail Webb had told them at the gas station was true, documented, undeniable. Then the phone calls began cascading. Rivera, recognizing the scale of the crisis, contacted her supervisor, who contacted the field office director, who made the call no one wanted to make to Metro PD's chief of police. That call triggered another to Navy Special Warfare Command. And somewhere in the city, Webb's wife, Sarah, received a call from her husband's sergeant, informing her that her husband had been arrested by ICE at a gas station 7 minutes from their home. Despite immediate verification of his identity, Marcus Webb remained in custody for 3 hours and 17 minutes. 3 hours of sitting in a holding room, still in handcuffs for the first 40 minutes, while bureaucratic panic spread through the Icefield office. 3 hours while supervisors gathered in offices, while attorneys were consulted, while people who had nothing to do with his arrest tried to determine how to limit the damage. The facility's cameras recorded it all. Webb sitting alone in an interview room, his posture straight, his face composed. Officers passing by the window, glancing in with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern, music to outright fear. Holt pacing in a hallway, running his hands through his hair, his body language radiating desperation. Holt's attempt to write his arrest report was captured on the booking area cameras. He sat at a desk typing and deleting, trying to construct a version that justified his actions. Suspicious behavior, failed to comply with lawful orders, evasive responses, each phrase a lie, each sentence contradicted by his own body camera footage. The booking officer, a veteran named Sergeant Williams with 22 years on the job, read the draft report with visible skepticism. "Suspicious behavior," he asked, his voice flat. The man was pumping gas. What was suspicious about that? Holt had no answer. At 1:15 p.m., Webb was brought to a formal interview room to give his statement. The facility's recording equipment captured every word as he described with precise detail exactly what had occurred. His voice was calm, almost clinical, the voice of a man who had delivered countless reports and witness statements throughout his career. "I was detained without probable cause," he stated, looking directly at the camera. Agent Holt demanded proof of citizenship, without stating any reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. "When I identified myself as a law enforcement officer and cited my Fourth Amendment rights, he arrested me anyway. I did not resist. I complied with all physical commands while verbally asserting my rights. This was an unlawful arrest based on racial profiling, and I intend to pursue every legal remedy available to me. At 1:47 p.m., Metro PD Chief Ronald Patterson arrived personally at the ICE field office. The exterior cameras captured his unmarked vehicle pulling into the lot at high speed. The interior cameras captured him striding through the entrance, his face a mask of controlled anger, flanked by 2 deputy chiefs. He did not ask for permission. He did not wait for escorts. He walked directly to where his detective was being held. 15 minutes later, Webb walked out of the facility, Chief Patterson at his side. The cameras captured Hull watching from a window as they left. And in the field office director's office, Hull's supervisor had already begun reviewing the body camera footage frame by frame, word by word, watching his agent's career unravel in high definition. Sarah Webb had been in the middle of her shift at Memorial Hospital when she received the call. By the time her husband walked through their front door that evening, still wearing the same gray t-shirt, his wrists bearing faint red marks from the handcuffs, she had already begun preparing their response. Before nursing, Sarah had completed 2 years of law school, and she understood exactly what had happened to her husband. She also understood what needed to happen next. Within 48 hours, Sarah had contacted the Constitutional Defense Coalition, a nonprofit organization specializing in civil rights litigation. Attorney Denise Crawford, a Harvard Law graduate with 15 years of experience fighting Fourth Amendment violations, reviewed the preliminary details and took the case immediately. "This is exactly why I do this work," Crawford told the Webbs during their first meeting. A decorated veteran, a police officer, targeted because of the color of his skin. "We're going to hold them accountable." The evidence assembly began with Freedom of Information requests filed simultaneously with ICE, the Department of Homeland Security, and local law enforcement agencies. Crawford's team demanded all body camera footage, all internal communications, all records related to Agent Derek Holt's employment history. Gary Morrison, the gas station owner, provided his complete CCTV footage without hesitation. "What they did to that man was wrong," he told Crawford's investigator. "I watched the whole thing. He did not do anything except stand there and pump gas." The footage included 8 camera angles covering 47 minutes from Webb's arrival to the moment Holt's vehicle disappeared down Miller Road. Every second preserved in high definition. Holt's body camera footage arrived 3 weeks later, obtained through the FOIA process after initial resistance from ICE legal counsel. The recording was devastating. 23 minutes of uninterrupted video showing Holt's approach, his immediate demand for documents, his music dismissal of Webb's credentials, his aggressive stance throughout. The audio captured every word. Webb's calm assertions of his rights. Holt's escalating hostility. Rivera's ignored warnings. Webb's personal dash cam provided the third perspective. Activated remotely the moment he saw the agents approaching. It captured crystal clear audio through his truck's open window. The footage showed what the body camera could not. Holt's approach from a distance. His targeting of Webb among all the customers at the station. The moment he decided that this black man, among all others present, was suspicious. When Crawford synchronized all 3 sources, the complete picture emerged with undeniable clarity. No suspicious behavior whatsoever. Immediate racial targeting. Credentials offered and ignored. Constitutional rights asserted and dismissed. An unlawful arrest carried out despite every warning. Discovery revealed the final piece. 7 prior complaints against Hull, each alleging racial profiling, each dismissed without meaningful investigation. A pattern of discrimination stretching back 6 years, enabled by an agency that valued enforcement statistics over constitutional compliance. The evidence was not just damaging, it was comprehensive, undeniable, and captured from every possible angle. The complaint was filed in the United States District Court 4 months after Webb's arrest. Marcus Webb versus United States Department of Homeland Security, Derek Hull and Maria Rivera. 47 pages detailing constitutional violations that struck at the core of what it meant to be an American citizen. The charges were extensive. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure. False arrest without probable cause. Racial profiling and violation of the Equal Protection Clause. Unlawful detention. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Deprivation of rights under color of law pursuant to 42. SC Section 1983. Each count supported by 3 synchronized video recordings and Holt's own documented history of complaints. The government's response was predictable. Within 60 days, their attorneys reached out with a settlement offer. $100,000. No admission of wrongdoing. Sealed records. Crawford called Webb with the offer. His response was immediate. No. They returned with $300,000, then $750,000. Each time, Webb refused. This is not about money, he told Crawford during a strategy session. Sarah sitting beside him, her hand on his arm. I served 12 years protecting this country. I spent 3 tours watching friends die for the Constitution. And then I come home and a federal agent treats me like a criminal because I am black. If I accept their money and let them bury this, nothing changes. The next Derek Holt continues doing what he is doing. The next veteran gets harassed at a gas station. No, we go to trial. The government's attorneys filed motion after motion attempting to suppress the music evidence. They argued the dash cam footage was obtained without consent. They claimed the CCTV footage was improperly authenticated. They sought to exclude Holt's prior complaints, music, as prejudicial. Judge Patricia Womack denied every motion, ruling that the footage was central to establishing the facts of the case, and that Holt's pattern of behavior was directly relevant to the claims of systematic discrimination. Media attention surged as trial approached. The story had everything a Navy SEAL with a Bronze Star and Purple Heart. A police detective with a spotless record targeted by immigration enforcement in his own neighborhood. Cable news aired segments. National newspapers published features. Veterans organizations issued statements of support. Law enforcement unions found themselves in the difficult position of defending one of their own against another branch of government authority. By the time jury selection began, the case had become a referendum on something larger than one man's arrest. It was about whether the Constitution protected all Americans equally, or whether looking a certain way was enough to lose your rights. The entire country was watching. 18 months after Marcus Webb was handcuffed at a suburban gas station, the case went to trial in the United States District Court. The courtroom was filled every single day. Civil rights advocates, veterans groups, law enforcement representatives, and national media occupying every available seat. Lines formed hours before the doors opened. People eager to witness what had become one of the most closely followed civil rights cases in years. Jury selection lasted 3 days. 12 citizens from diverse backgrounds were ultimately chosen. A retired teacher, a small business owner, a nurse, an electrician, 2 military veterans, and 6 others who would decide whether the Constitution's protections applied equally to all Americans, regardless of skin color. They sat in the jury box with serious expressions, understanding the weight of what they were about to witness. Denise Crawford's opening statement set the tone for everything that followed. She stood before the jury, her voice carrying clearly through the silent courtroom. This case is about one man's experience, but it's about something far greater. It's about whether federal agents can demand papers from American citizens based on nothing more than the color of their skin. Marcus Webb served 3 combat tours defending the Constitution of the United States. He earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. He transitioned to law enforcement and continued serving his community as a police detective. And on a Saturday morning, while pumping gas in his own neighborhood, his own government treated him like a criminal, not because of anything he did, but because of how he looked. Then the footage played. 3 screens positioned around the courtroom displayed the synchronized recordings. Holt's body camera on the left, the gas station CCTV in the center, Webb's dash cam on the right. The jury watched in complete silence as Holt exited his vehicle, crossed the street, and approached Webb within seconds of spotting him. They watched him ignore every other customer at the station, the white businessman at pump 3, the elderly white couple at pump 5, and walk directly to the black man at pump 7. The timestamps aligned perfectly. The audio overlapped from 3 sources. There was no ambiguity, no room for alternative interpretation. The jury saw exactly what occurred from every angle with crystal clarity. Expert witnesses testified over the following days. Dr. Patricia Morrison, a psychologist specializing in implicit bias, explained how unconscious prejudice influences law enforcement decision-making. Professor William Hayes from Georgetown Law detailed Fourth Amendment jurisprudence, explaining in clear terms why Holt's demand for documents violated constitutional protections. A former ICE supervisor testified about enforcement patterns and the agency's failure to address documented complaints of racial profiling. Holt's testimony was disastrous. Under direct examination by government attorneys, he attempted to justify his actions, claiming Webb had shown suspicious behavior and evasive body language. But under Crawford's cross-examination, His defense collapsed word by word. Agent Holt, can you describe the suspicious behavior you observed? He seemed alert, watching us. He was watching two federal agents approach him at a gas pump. Describe the suspicious behavior you observed. He seemed alert, watching us. He was watching two federal agents approach him at a gas pump. Is that suspicious? Silence. Agent Holt. The footage shows my client calmly pumping gas. Music was not pacing. He was not looking around nervously. He was not doing anything except fueling his truck. What exactly was suspicious? Music, more silence. Agent Holt. There were 6 other customers at that gas station. Why did you not approach any of them? Holt had no answer. The footage had already provided one. Webb testified for 6 hours over 2 days. He guided the jury through his military service, his transition to law enforcement, his life in the community where he had grown up. He described the morning of the arrest with precise, controlled detail, the exhaustion after his night shift, the routine stop for gas, the moment he saw the agents approaching, and knew with the instinct of a black man in America that they were coming for him. His voice broke only once when describing what he told his children afterward. My son asked me why the police arrested Daddy. He is 11 years old. I have spent my entire life serving this country, serving my community, and I had to explain to my child that sometimes people will treat you like a criminal just because of how you look. That is not the America I fought for. Crawford's closing argument lasted 47 minutes. She walked the jury through the evidence, the footage, the pattern of complaints, the constitutional violations, and then she delivered the line that would be quoted in newspapers across the country. Marcus Webb served 3 combat tours defending the Constitution. He took shrapnel in his leg, protecting the freedoms we all share. He came home and continued serving as a police officer, protecting his community, and this is how his own government treated him. Handcuffed at a gas station, detained for 3 hours, humiliated in front of witnesses because Agent Derek Holt saw a black man and assumed he did not belong. The Constitution does not have an asterisk. It does not say unless you look a certain way. It protects all of us or it protects none of us. Today, you get to decide which country we live in. The jury deliberated for 2 days, 47 hours of discussion behind closed doors while the nation waited. Webb spent the time at home with his family, trying to maintain normalcy for his children, checking his phone every few minutes for updates. Sarah held his hand through the long silences, her faith unshaken. Crawford paced her office, reviewing transcripts, second-guessing nothing, but unable to quiet her mind. When the call came that a verdict had been reached, the courtroom filled within an hour. Every seat taken, media cameras positioned outside, the hallway packed with people who could not get in, straining to hear through the doors. The jury foreman, a 53-year-old Marine Corps veteran named Robert Chin, stood to deliver the verdict. His hands were steady, his voice clear. On the count of Fourth Amendment violation, we find the defendant liable. On the count of false arrest, we find the defendant liable. On the count of racial profiling, we find the defendant liable. On the count of unlawful detention, we find the defendant liable. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, we find the defendant liable. On the count of deprivation of rights under color of law, we find the defendant liable. Liable on all counts. Sarah Webb buried her face in her husband's shoulder, sobbing. Crawford closed her eyes, releasing months of tension. In the gallery, veterans who had served with Webb embraced each other. The courtroom buzzed with restrained emotion. Judge Wack's gavel restoring order. The damages phase lasted another week. The jury heard testimony about Webb's PTSD diagnosis, the nightmares, the hypervigilance, the difficulty trusting anyone in uniform despite being one himself. They heard about the impact on his law enforcement career, the whispered questions from colleagues, the assumption by some that he must have done something to provoke the arrest. They heard from a child psychologist about the trauma experienced by Marcus Jr. and Destiny, who had watched their father's arrest replayed on national news, who had endured questions and taunts from classmates. Webb's voice cracked as he described his daughter asking if the police were going to take Daddy away again. She is 8 years old, he said, tears streaming down his face. She is afraid of police now. My daughter is afraid of the very people I have spent my life working alongside. How do I fix that? How do I explain that to her? The jury deliberated on damages for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom fell silent. Compensatory damages, $7.4 million for emotional distress, for career impact, for the violation of constitutional rights that were meant to be sacred. Punitive damages $7.5 million calculated specifically to send a message to ICE to DHS to every federal agency in the country that racial profiling would not be tolerated, that the Constitution was not optional. Total $14.9 million. The courtroom erupted cheers and tears and embraces. Webb sat motionless for a long moment, absorbing the magnitude of what had happened. Then he turned to his wife, pulled her close, and whispered something that the cameras could not capture. Sarah nodded, crying, holding him tightly. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was immediate. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Crawford delivered a statement on the courthouse steps, while the Webb family stood behind her, united, dignified. Today, a jury of 12 Americans sent a message, music, that resonates far beyond this courtroom. The Constitution protects all of us. Badges do not grant immunity from accountability. And when federal agents violate the rights of citizens based on the color of their skin, there will be consequences. Agent Derek Holt was terminated within hours of the verdict. His 9-year career ended not with a pension, but with disgrace, his name forever linked to one of the largest civil rights verdicts against a federal agency. Agent Maria Rivera was suspended pending review. She resigned 3 weeks later, unable to continue in an agency where she had witnessed injustice occur and failed to stop it. The Department of Homeland Security, facing mounting pressure and the undeniable evidence of the trial, announced sweeping policy reforms, mandatory constitutional law training for all ICE agents, new protocols requiring verification of citizenship claims before any detention, independent oversight of complaints alleging racial profiling, body camera footage review for all encounters resulting in arrests. The reforms came too late for Marcus Webb, but perhaps because of what he endured, they would come in time for someone else. Marcus Webb could have walked away. After everything he had endured, the humiliation, the trauma, the 18-month legal battle, no one would have blamed him for accepting a settlement and stepping away from public life. Instead, he chose to continue serving. 6 months after the verdict, Webb announced the creation of the Shield and Constitution Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing free legal representation to veterans and first responders who face civil rights violations. The foundation was funded with a significant portion of his settlement, staffed by attorneys who shared his belief that those who serve their country deserve to have their constitutional rights protected. I had resources, Webb explained at the foundation's launch event. Sarah and their children standing beside him. I had a wife with legal knowledge. I had connections. I had the means to fight back. But what about the veteran who does not? What about the firefighter or the paramedic who gets profiled and does not understand their rights? That is who this foundation is for. No one who served this country should ever have to face what I faced alone. The policy changes Webb's case forced into place spread through federal law enforcement. DHS implemented mandatory verification protocols requiring agents to confirm citizenship claims before any detention. New training modules emphasized Fourth Amendment limitations, using Webb's case as a warning example. Body camera footage review became standard for all encounters, resulting in arrests with civilian oversight committees empowered to flag potential violations. The synchronized footage from that Saturday morning Holt's body camera, the gas station CCTV, Webb's personal dash cam, became required viewing at ICE training facilities and law enforcement agencies nationwide. Recruits watched the 3 angles play simultaneously, watched Holt bypass white customers to target the one black man at the station, watched him ignore credentials and dismiss constitutional objections. Instructors paused the footage at critical moments. Music, asking trainees to identify where Holt went wrong, what he should have done differently, how implicit bias had transformed a routine morning into a $14.9 million verdict. Webb returned to duty at Metro PD 3 months after the trial concluded. His colleagues welcomed him back with respect that bordered on reverence, not because of the verdict, but because of how he carried himself throughout. He had remained composed under pressure. He had refused to accept silence. He had stood for something greater than himself. 2 years later, he was promoted to lieutenant, leading a unit focused on community relations and constitutional policing. The 3 camera angles had revealed something that words alone could never express. From Holt's own body camera, the jury saw his immediate targeting, his aggressive stance, his refusal to listen. From the gas station CCTV, they saw the broader context. Webb's unremarkable arrival, his routine behavior, the other customers Holt ignored. From Webb's dash cam, They heard the audio with crystal clarity, every word preserved, every constitutional objection documented, bias recorded from every perspective, truth captured from every angle, no space for alternative narratives or competing interpretations. The Fourth Amendment was written to protect all Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures. It does not distinguish based on skin color. It does not include exceptions for anonymous tips or instinctive judgments. It stands as a promise that in this country the government cannot treat citizens as suspects without cause. Marcus Webb's case proved that when that promise is broken, accountability is possible, but only when the truth is preserved. If you believe that the Constitution protects all Americans equally, that veterans deserve better than to be profiled in their own communities, that accountability matters when power is abused, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we have another story of courage confronting injustice. Another reminder that standing up for your rights can change not just your own life, but the systems that music failed you. Because the truth, when recorded from 3 different angles and proven beyond any doubt, has the power to transform not just individual lives, but entire institutions. 3 cameras, 3 perspectives, 1 undeniable reality, and a reminder that technology designed to document can also hold power accountable 1 frame at a time. This case was harsh, but the case on the right spirals completely out of